It is time to find out who is the real Mongol, who is the true Khan. Live by Mongol, die my Mongol. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen, as we are back with more of the Age of Empires 4 action. And it is going to be DeMuslim up against Genghis Khan, or I'm just going Genghis, even though that's not what he's going for, the wordplay in this situation. But Genghis Khan, I can't remember whose account this was. I remember it was one of the Gen G guys. I noticed a few of them on the leaderboards, but I don't think I've been seeing them stream, so I couldn't really check in on them. I couldn't find anything like in terms of pro data at all. But they are formidable players. I've seen the 2 or 3 of the Gen G names constantly in the top 100. And this is definitely another one of them. This is one of their Smurfs, I think, in fact, as it is a private account and I've recently created one. 122 games played for Genghis Khan here, sitting 11th right now on the leaderboard with 1,837 elo. And DeMuslim, of course, still floating around that top 20, top 30 region. So still keeping competitive, up to 600 games now for him. But Mongol or Mongol? DeMuslim definitely played a lot of Mongol in the opening weeks. And with a name like Genghis Khan, I imagine that's almost exclusively what this player has been doing. The only reason I can see this is shout out to DeMuslim for not privating his profile, because Genghis does have his private, so we couldn't check if he's heavy on the Mongols. But I'm going to assume he is, and it's going to be on Danube River. Danube River should be an interesting one, right? Like, we've started to see a little bit more of this. It's definitely fun when we watch these matchups. I like the way that the Central Island comes into play compared to the old Danube. It's a lot fairer, and it's going to probably be one of the best maps, I feel like, to watch a mirror matchup on, right? Like, I know I talk about Boulder Bay being an amazing map overall, and it is. But I think if you wanted, like, probably the fairest map, I have to say the new Danube River generations, for me, most of the ones I've seen have been some of the most balanced map generations I've actually seen in the game so far. So, definitely the standout map since the patch. And look at this placement by DeMuslim. He actually takes the time to shift his TC all the way across. Genghis Khan had less distance to cover. So, actually, I guess that is one small detail I will highlight, because that is actually one thing that is frequently true here, is that the player in the north seems to start closer to the shoreline than the player in the south. And the balance is meant to be the player in the south starts a little bit more central. I'm not really sure if I'd say that that's a fair value. I'd rather see the central islands a little bit expanded, possibly, and then both players start in the north and east corner, respectively, with the same distance to get to water. I don't think you need this kind of cute situation where one player has this offset but this gain instead. I think it would be much cooler for Danube to simply be like a mirror start location on each side. And then you also, if either you want to go for trade post-trade, you've got similar risks associated as well. So overall, definitely would love to see that change. But for the moment, it does mean that DeMuslim, I think, is going to be a villager behind. Ooh, wow. More than one. What? He's 5 units. 4 units on average. No, it's actually truly 5. It's 5 units behind, because Genghis had such a small distance to cover. DeMuslim is 5 units behind him already, and we aren't even 3 minutes into the game. That's how far he had to travel to TC. And that is the pain he's feeling. I think the fishing fleet, yeah, that's the big difference, right? More so than anything, it's the fact that he's got double the fishing boats out already. This probably could have been offset by DeMuslim if he'd moved more quickly across to the location of the dock and built that immediately, but I think his concern was wood limitations in the early game, so I can't blame him for playing it the way he did. Just an unfortunate situation where, in a Mongol-on-Mongol matchup at least, spawning on the south side seems to be a distinct disadvantage, at least for this type of opening. And the whole purpose of this type of opening, by the way, is to prevent early raiding. It keeps a condensed economy. It also means your TC functions like an outpost protecting your fishing line, so that if your opponent does beat you on a feudal-age tech-up, they're not able to actually come in and sink you off of the water. Which, remember, a lot of these hybrid maps, if you get taken off the water, it feels like you've basically lost the game. And look at this. So Genghis was trying to run out the villagers. The villagers are trying outpost right over near the fishing line. Between the wolves and the Khans, it's not going to be that easily done for him. But he might still pull it off. I think that, yeah, he's actually being pretty defensive of it. If he went a little bit closer, he might have been in range of the TC. But I think he gets this outpost down, probably loses one of the villagers for it, however. How is the resource front looking? Genghis almost ready for that tech up. No surprise here that he's probably going to be a minute ahead of his opponent. The crazy part is, even if he loses 2 villagers here, he's still ahead, right? DeMuslim 19, Genghis up at 25 economy units. So there you go. Gets one of these villagers. Second one is too healthy to kill, though. There are spearmen coming out, however, but it's just 2 spearmen, 2 measly spearmen. He needs to get up to about 7, 8 at least. The problem is with more villagers coming out, that number just increases. He's probably going to need 12 to 13 spearmen to be able to get through this outpost. And yeah, for the moment, it's not the end of the world, right? DeMuslim, because he does have these fishing lines on both sides of the dock, you see he just backs up to the southern one, and it means the outpost can't reach. But now you can see Genghis, he can start to do that outpost crawl we see so frequently. And this is the frustrating part about playing against Mongols, right? It's not as much the spearman spam or anything like that in the early game anymore. It's about this outpost spam because it's so cost-effective. Only 70 wood to harass and shut out your opponent's eco lines is damn good trade. And there we go. Now he's got the 10 spearmen. They're slow to move, though. The TC, I think he might be able to... He might have been able to actually reach one of these villages. The other 2 are unaccessible, though, at that range. Or inaccessible. You go to Spearman. Maneuver arrow to get around quicker. You've got 2 outposts to get through, though. Should be enough, but it's going to just waste a lot of your time, right? The cool thing about being Mongols doing this, by the way, is the fact that you get food and gold for this, though. So it's actually very nice. You'll see it. So his opponent does reach the fuel age, but something that will help DeMuslim recover a little bit of the cost now is the fact that he's going to raise 2 buildings and get 100 food and 100 gold because of it. And that's the riskiness of Genghis's player here as an opener. I think he didn't need to do this at all. Yes, you had the head start. You didn't 100% know that, right? Instead, you should have played for your feudal and tried to siege in. Maybe if you scouted out, you would have been able to see how far he came in. But obviously, with the new Danube, you don't know exactly where your opponent's spawning. You don't know exactly what he's doing unless you scout enough early on. And as a result, that early economy lead you had has been thrown in the gutter. You see it, right? 1 eco difference, and that 1 eco difference is going to die because that village is gone. So, worrying start to Muslim is going to be overcome. He's still behind because his opponent did kick up to the fuel a whole minute before him. And that does mean he's going to be somewhat vulnerable as we can see the light junks are now coming out. But remember that the light junks won't have easy pickings because the TC is going to protect your dock line. And now, into the feudal. Commits 9 people to it. DeMuslim understanding that being a minute behind is already a big enough disadvantage. You don't want to make it 2. And meanwhile, his spearman pushing in, understanding that also his opponent show no signs of having a military force, so you can try to apply some pressure. And I don't know if you can kill many of these villages, but if you could find your way in the gold line, snipe 1 or 2, it might be worth it. But you need to be quick, right? You spot out your opponent has built these archers now. Archers that get that bonus damage, remember, they do 10 damage per shot to the spearman. And it means the Muslim will just have to back away. Meanwhile, light junks on the edge of the TC will come into range of it. So you can see how quickly they get picked, right? Garrison's a bunch of villagers in, and light junk is instantly sunk. And that was what we were concerned about. Genghis has to be careful of that. He won't be able to force his opponent off the water if he tries to do it via water. He needs a military force on land to get his opponent off of the shoreline. And as a result, DeMuslim now just doubling up. One thing to be highlighted here is Genghis has nowhere to run if he gets pushed back to his dockland, right? Yes, you do have the TC protecting you there, but look how small the area is behind it, right? This is the kind of the balance we were talking about, because it's not a direct mirror up of like how these 2 starting locations function. Well, DeMuslim got stunned on his early economy. What he has is he has a lot more open ground to play with along the shoreline, right? If he gets pushed back to his TC, he still has a third of the water to farm on. Whereas if Genghis gets pushed back to his TC, he has like an 1/8. So Archer seems just chased down. DeMuslim should be switching into archers himself soon, really. Maybe he's just planning to surpass this, though. I think from DeMuslim's perspective, he's already behind his opponent, so the worst mistake he can make is trying to play into archers right now. It would probably be better for him to just try and go straight up into like cavalry, for example, and try to get the castle age before his opponent. Interesting choice to go after light junk there. I think if you threw torches at the fishing boats, you would have sniped 1 or 2 of them. You're never getting that light junk there, so just kind of a wasted effort. The Muslim will look to back away. How is his eco count looking? 43. So wow, Genghis fell behind. So Genghis fell behind because he didn't have surplus wood and food at all times. I think food might have been okay, but wood was the limiter, right? So while his opponent was able to keep pushing out fishing ships, I think if we look at the difference, it's 10 compared to the 13. And of course, some of this is equated to the second dock, but a big chunk of this was more to do with the fact that Genghis had to spend like his wood going into the archery and then building the archers, which cost 50 wood each, right? So I think that did hurt him a little bit. And it's becoming a worrying situation in the following minutes because you're investing so much in light junks, it's failing. He's building a second dock, and his tree line is already halfway through. And if we measure that tree line comparison, I do like DeMuslim's better. He has a second small tree line here, and also he's not wasting his wood like Genghis is. And for anyone who's wondering who Genghis is, like I said, I don't know exactly who this person is. So if someone does know, please do share that information. I think it's one of the Gen G guys, like Gen G Chrysor, those type of people, because I did, like, it has to be said that the name is written as if it's Gen G is Khan, right? So while it spells Genghis Khan because it's all caps here, the name is actually Gen G is Khan. In fact, if we look at it, you can see it in the top right there. So I believe it's one of the Gen G players. I just don't know which one. Gen G players that I don't think have really won much in Age of Empires 4 so far, but if they, I don't know if they're actually an org or it's like a player-started org. I think they had. I think I found a Twitter page that had about 300 followers, and I'd imagine as a player round one, there's like 3 members. But those members do float between the top 100 and the top 200 regularly, so they are talented individuals. Oh, now look at this move out. This outpost drop is slow from Genghis. He has got a lot of archers here though, and that's why the move arrow is used. Trying to get full value, stab straight into the villager line. He knows he's going to lose the spears because to make it worthwhile. And now he has his own archers. And they're stabbing in the back. So Genghis, going to be at a disadvantage in terms of the numbers at this rate. Does get the outpost complete in time. Loses one of the villagers for it. And that's going to force DeMuslim back, losing one of his villagers too. But he will be one over here. So the outpost crawl does begin. Most critical element of the Mongol gameplay right now is these outposts. It's all about setup for the next 10 minutes, next 15 minutes, right? You want that network so that you can plow across the map. It gives you that fluidity, right? It also means you don't have to necessarily move your deer stone somewhere risky. Also means that you actually don't have to move your military infrastructure to the front line as often. There will be situations where I think players have to do it, and often we've seen players ignore it. In fact, we've seen a game, DeMuslim up against Viper, didn't do that and actually forfeited a lot of his game because of it. But now this outpost placement, quite frustrating as we can see. All the fishing boats have to shift to the north. But like we said, this is the difference, right? As long as he doesn't let these outposts in the north go up, it means that he's got all his fallback area for his fishing. Whereas if Genghis ever loses this initial foothold in the water, he has nowhere that he can gather fish with, right? And that means that he'll have wasted his efforts with these 13 fishing boats. Now, more archery ranges. So is that going to be... Yes, that's 2 archery ranges, 2 barracks, and he's building the step redoubt now. So the Muslim is prepped for this. You see he's continued to crawl in the outpost, and his opponents let him do this. This is a big mistake. Genghis needed to actually repel this. He needed to address it before it happened, because now it means that DeMuslim, he's going to be able to tech up. Yes, you're doing it yourself, but the difference is that actually DeMuslim has a more stable network of outposts to move between with that yam speed. You have these loose outposts next to the shoreline, right? But you don't have that connector. And it also means that you're stripped on vision, right? Look at the vision game right now. You see your opponent's outposts. His outposts are controlling around the center area. It means he's going to see what's coming much earlier than you are, because you are incredibly limited on the crossing. He can actually avoid your vision. You can't avoid his. But now we should be seeing demo ships, right? It's still fishing boats at the moment for Genghis. Kind of surprising. He has outposts down here on the river, on the corner next to the docks. He could easily get 3 or 4 demo ships come in here and boom a lot of the Muslims' fishing boats as well as his docks. But no. Instead, DeMuslim will be a little bit behind him. But considering how this game opened up, I think DeMuslim's actually gap closed the difference, right? He's staying within kind of an arm's reach, essentially, at this stage of Genghis. And more outposts going down. This one's going to be prevented. But with a superior amount of archers, he could stop Genghis from attacking the villager. And the split right now, you can see DeMuslim is hardcore into the food. So he wants to field a giant army at this stage. And he doesn't need much gold to do that, right? The man-arms and archers, it's basically food. Yeah, you start to see him pushing out more. So 4 racks producing man-at-arms, sometimes in double the quantity. Meanwhile, Genghis is going into lances here. These lances aren't actually a bad solution because you're not countered, right? There's no crossbowmen. But do keep in mind that your opponent isn't necessarily going to fold quickly. Man-at-arms are incredibly tanky even against the cavalry. The cavalry, remember, they get no bonus damage. They just hit hard and move fast, right? That's the catch. So it'll be interesting to see if DeMuslim, because he's identified this, because he has the early outpost, will he switch into the crossbowman? I think you kind of have to in this situation. You're crippling yourself somewhat if you don't. You need a decent amount of archers to match your opponent's archer army, but just a handful of crossbowmen could completely ruin this Lancer formation that Genghis is building. Instead, he's building a Mangonel. And this is going to be spotted out. Big mistake. Man-at-arms to hold back the Lancers, though. And with the defense of the outpost nearby, he should be fine here. They do at least snipe out the Mangonel, and they are going to back away with 1 or 2 casualties, but that's a decent chunk of income just lost, right? Think how much that cost. At this stage in the game, 400 wood and 200 gold for DeMuslim, considering his wood line is running out, and how he didn't want to put too many people in gold at this stage, that is costly. Fishing continues. Are some of these fishing boats still being wonky? Oh, they are. I hate this about fishing boats right now. So if you build the fishing boats out of a dock and you don't manually drop the resources off at a different dock, they will by default always return to the original dock. And that's what was happening there. That's why you had to manually do it. Because that fishing boat was genuinely going to run all the way back to this dock despite having 2 closer by ones. It is such a stupid element of fishing boats at the moment. But I guess no one's in a rush to have it fixed because everyone's actually just sick of how important fishing is on hybrid maps, so it doesn't quickly get patched, you know. Here we go, more outposts once again. DeMuslim just understanding that the way to win this game is going to be outpost rule. And it's something that Genghis continues to neglect. I love that he's going for the prayer tent, collecting up these relics where he can, but I think he's just made a fatal error in his failure to outpost regularly. He had control of the central island before DeMuslim did. He could have actually got his own outpost down, and instead you're starting to be denied. And look how many fishing boats you've got here. You could actually lose a lot. He's got a decent amount of lancers, but the amount of man-at-arms equals you out right now. And Mangonel shots with the archers as well. This is not a good use of the light junks, but no better use at the moment. Really needed a boom ship. There might have been an opportunity. It'd be unlikely, but it would at least prevent DeMuslim from crossing, right? Now here we go. Mangonel, shots out. Decent damage from the archer line. That's most of it gone. The Lancers wasting their time chasing down the Mangonels that have already found their value now. Means that you can actually clean up the other half of the Lancers and move in with your archers to clean up his. And the crossbowman, because he has transitioned into those now. Instead, DeMuslim prioritizing down the suboptimal choice, right? Going for the archers first means he loses all of his man-at-arms, and now he needs to retreat. But he has a new battalion coming in. 10 more to refresh the front line means that now Genghis has to back away. And a little bit more gold and food for taking out these outposts. But the man-at-arms trying to burn through that quickly. Means he's exposing his archer front, though. Needs to be careful. And this is the power of man-at-arms, right? It's not just that he has more of the infrastructure, it's the fact that you push them out quicker and they're cheaper, right? So it's essentially 2 man-at-arms to 1 Lancer. That's the way you have to think about it. And that's actually a very good trade for the man-at-arms, especially when you have that movement speed buff. And still, crossbowmen are making the difference. And finally, we do see a switch up. So DeMuslim is now switching over to the crossbowman, but it was so delayed, he lost a lot more man-at-arms than maybe he needed to. And also, his gold income is going to be weak for the next minute or so as he's shifting across the new gold vein. So that's something to keep in mind. It's why he has his surplus, why it's important that he keeps his surplus, right? Meanwhile, Genghis is a lot slower by the looks of it. Yeah, he's actually shifting himself as well. Oh, and so many villages. Okay, he's going to draw them back just in time. That could have been so much worse. If there was a fight going on right there, folks, that's one of those situations where your villagers are running all the way back to base and you don't realize. And then you just hurt your effective income for the next minute in such a way that if you lose that fight that you're distracted by, you could lose the game. DeMuslim just upping the archer count now, right? Up to 5. Understanding that he needs to address these lancers. Mangonels are good enough to deal with the crossbows, right? And you don't need military infrastructure for that. You build them out in the field. So it's mainly just about the Mangonels, crossbows, and just enough man-at-arms to hold back the front line. Because if you invest too heavily in man-at-arms, you're going to lose them to the crossbows. Meanwhile, Genghis, he has been getting small treacle out of taking out these outposts, and it's important to keep stripping control. But now, he doesn't have the movement speed boost. He could be chased down here. Needs to be a little bit careful. Mangonel, not able to get quickly in range here. But it will force Genghis back across the ford. And that's important. DeMuslim needs to maintain control of the central island. It's why he's building more outposts. New Uvu down. Needed the additional treacle. Just trying to get to a stage where he can Zerg a second army if need be. He's not like to move his infrastructure away because it's a bit deeper, a bit further away. He just wants to prep a huge stone surplus so that if we do think about Imperial Age timing, he can instantly push out a giant army by sticking all of his military builds around a white stupa. So many fishing boats that can be exposed here. And this redoubt, this feels wonky. You can't let him get on your side here. If you allow DeMuslim onto your side of the map here, he's going to run rampant because you've got so much exposed economy in the fishing boats and the step redoubt gold line. And I think that's information that DeMuslim did catch. No, he just missed out on that detail. No, surely he didn't. I think he must have just about seen it. He just wasn't able to exploit it yet. But with more mangonels, oh, the damage onto the fishing boats. And now Springel's coming out. And he's invested so much in mangonels. One of them already going to be sniped. Spirals are too far forward, though. Out with the crossbowmen, not effective at getting through them. Now, man-at-arms are going to engage. Crossbowmen deal with the Lancers, forcing them back quickly. Mangonel's trying to move in range, trying to get some shots off, but the Spirals are killing them too quick here. The man-at-arms trying to address that. Mangonel's, one salvo out. Decent damage done. Crossbow's down to half health. But the Mangonel is going to fall. And he has lost the man-at-arms army now, so he has to back up his own crossbowmen. And a Mangonel in the arms of Genghis means that he now has the Muslim in full retreat. New outpost going down. Push through the boom ships, trying to get rid of a few villages in the outpost in the process. And that was a nice idea, actually. So that's the other reason DeMuslim backs up. He has to realize that he's playing into these dock areas, and we've now just seen that Genghis is intending to build into the explosive junks. This is something that DeMuslim has continued to ignore this entire time. Despite knowing how much of the fishing economy is this far forward, he doesn't choose to build a few boom ships and get rid of it. And it means that, if anything, Genghis is going to be a bit more comfortable, right? Because it means he's moving towards these more risky fishing locations before his opponent. And these outposts on the southern side were never addressed by DeMuslim, which means that Genghis knows he's not going to be salt on water, right? He's got that early heads-up warning, and I'm surprised that DeMuslim still hasn't removed that. And there you go. Thinking about it now, but always has to look forward of him, right? This explosive junks are frustrating to now cover the passes. But he's winning the Springald trade. So DeMuslim just needs to kind of keep a 1 or 2 Springald advantage over his opponent, and then Genghis really just can't fight him. It's going to be important that you have these Springalds to snipe out the explosive junks, otherwise you could easily lose them. But you need 4. Like, you see how slow 2 is to kill, right? It's barely any damage. Courtesy of the healing coming out from the docks. And Genghis, this was the important detail. He actually moves past a very dangerous point in his game. This step redoubt being on the front was incredibly risky with the Mangonels pushing in. Now that he's through that gold vein, this is safe territory. Unless DeMuslim goes for a wide flank attack, it's unlikely that his economy directly gets hit before a ginormous fight is decided. And that makes DeMuslim's life harder. But Genghis, not necessarily finding it any easier, right? Well, there's all this fishing economy up here. There's nothing else to easily exploit. Like, this gold vein will eventually be gone by the time you reach the DeMuslim side of the map anyway. So both of them not really at risk of losing their gold lines anytime soon. I will say that Genghis could wrap around with the Lancers, but he's just using them more like man-at-arms at this stage, right? Which means he's never able to raid with them. Oh, the Springal's sneaking in. Mangonel's just gone like that. And that'll be a fallback coming out of Genghis. Remember, he lost the movement speed buff. He's going to lose a lot of these troops on the retreat. So just needs to keep running, cannot turn around. Gets back into Yam booster. He's able to retreat. And it really is coming down to those outposts. And it's why I talk about it so often. Another boom ship! Oh my god! It hits! Half the crossbow army gone like that. DeMuslim jumps the gun and it proves himself too greedy of a boy. What a mistake made. So many crossbowmen lost. Luckily, he had a secondary force there. But he had the edge, right? He had the number advantage. And losing so many there means that Genghis doesn't feel pressured anymore. Losing these Lancers has usually put him in a situation where it hurts. But if you're able to even up the explosive junks like that, it means that there's never a situation where DeMuslim is instantly going across the river. But he can move across to these water lines, right? So just trying to keep the fishing boats at bay. Always has to worry about the explosive junks, though, and that's the concern. And this is where I would really love to see him just utilize this dock, build a few explosive junks, and roll them upriver. It's ridiculous how much damage you could do to Genghis's infrastructure with a few junks of your own. But still just neglecting it the entire time. Springals can at least keep wasting these. This is a wasted effort for Genghis. I don't like the way he's using these junks. Yes, they're only 80 gold each and 160 wood, but you're just giving it over for free. you're essentially making these Spring Wolves pay for themselves, right? They already have with the amount of Mangonels and Spring Wolves they sniped out, but most definitely in this state with the amount of explosive junks you're just letting be sunk. And now, with the Spring Wolf upgrade in the outpost, the forward outpost here, notice the difference, right? These outposts got raised to the ground. Now you have freedom to move around this island, and more importantly, like, you can move back for this economy if you want. Meanwhile, Genghis, he ran out of fish up here, right? I think he's got like 1 or 2 fishing locations left up here. That's why he's been pushing hard into the center. And he's losing this whole economy on the waterfront. Remember, although Spring Wolves only hit for 30, it's basically pure damage because there's no range resistance on these fishing boats. So one volley almost kills the fishing boat each time. A new outpost going down once again. Genghis never actually following up control into the center island with outpost drops has really been the bane of his existence. He needs to switch up as well, and it's going to be the White Stupa, so he's quick towards this. DeMuslim, is he doing the same? No, DeMuslim is full in on the food right now. He's just investing everything into a new army, so he's going to be forced to push in hard here. Remember, the biggest deal as well is these explosive junks will come back into play in Imperial Age. Because of how bugged explosive tech is, it not only increases the damage by 40% on incendiary ships, it actually increases the blast radius as well. Which means what you saw before where DeMuslim lost half the army to that explosive ship, next time he'll lose the whole army in that situation. There you go, tech up complete. No explosive tech yet. Missed opportunity, I think. The cool thing you can do, remember, is you can always garrison them, right? You can always garrison an explosive junk, wait for your opponent to get nearby, and then surprise them. I don't feel like I've seen any players do that, and it's a missed opportunity, because it's actually something that no one would expect for that very reason, right? There we go. Explosive tech being researched, 50 seconds. I think you should cancel this explosive junk. They're not going to get out quick enough, right? They're going to get killed before the tech's complete, so it'll just be, once again, a waste of resources. But here's the thing. If you actually get an explosive junk out with explosive tech and get it to this shoreline, half of DeMuslim's army here dies. That's how powerful it is. And if DeMuslim isn't paying attention for 2 seconds, which could happen if he's distracted back in his base by Lancer Rays like he is right now, then you could actually just annihilate his entire army and push him off the center island. There we go. Explosive junk moving out. Snipes out the outpost. Second one coming in as well. Might get another outpost for his trouble. Down to half HP. Capturing the sacred site as well. Can't get the center one, but it's going to be gold treacle. Meanwhile, DeMuslim did move this army up and round. So, 2 split forces now. He isn't looking in the right locations, though. He's going to snipe out this shaman, but he needs to push in. If he can spot the step readout, that one that we said was going to be safe, that we convinced Genghis it was going to be safe, he could actually just shut Genghis out of this game. Because remember, Genghis, yes, he went for this Imperial Age, but now his choices that seem optimal are pricey on the gold front, right? So you don't want to be cut off from your supply. Muslim definitely needs to push this advantage, right? Up to the 200 cap, moves away from the shoreline. I like this play. Like we said, if he hangs around with the explosives tech definitely being researched, like, you're definitely going to do it if you're going into the boom ship still. You put yourself at risk of losing the game on that front. But now he finds the step readout. He forces an engagement, and DeMuslim up at 114 to the 55 military units of Genghis. Genghis, because he went for this Imperial Age, doesn't have the resources, the output to build an army up to full cap. And he's going to lose his army. Mangonel going in for the shot. Decent spread damage. Hard hit there. If you weren't outnumbered already, you're about to be with the heavy casualties into your crossbow line. And Lance has been cleaned up. Genghis trying to get as much gold as he can before he's forced to retreat because he knows he's going to have to leave. And he's getting out there quick. Because he needs every little bit of gold he can get. Only 600 surplus right now. His income per minute is about to sink into Gutterville. The little raids are finished. Outpost slowly sniping down the dock. No gold to retreat to back here, remember. He had to continue on his veins. And he wasn't capped before. He definitely is going to be now. 30 military compared to 95 for DeMuslim. A lot of that being these crossbow, yes. But the other chunk of it actually being back in his base, waiting to move across and attack. And also onto the center gold veins. Once again, that central control, so pivotal in games like this. And about to actually complete the White Stupa himself. He's going to be ready to ramp it up with even more aggression. He pushes in. Looking to force an engagement. Khan hasn't got his arrow just yet. Can't get sniped out. Big deal. Don't have that attack speed buff. You also don't have outposts here, so you can be chased down. You need to be careful. He still has the number advantage, though, so he can turn and fight if he wants to, and he will. He realizes that as soon as the Lancer goes down, now Genghis has to run away. And with the Spirals nearby, Genghis still has a disadvantage here. And he doesn't have the gold to get his own Spirals out to counter this. And although Spirals may not be the ridiculous powerhouse they once were, it's still a slow and methodical death for your opponent. He'll cancel out the traps in the meantime. More Lancers coming out, has to engage here. These Lancers aren't going to last long, though, and the numbers still do favor DeMuslim at the moment. The villagers are chasing out, trying to get rid of the Spirals, though, but they're retreating away. And it means that, yeah, you might get the trade out, but are you going to lose a lot of villagers for it? Because if DeMuslim wants, he can start to snipe into your economy directly by taking on these villagers. And he does, he splits it up. Attack clicks, they go for 2 different targets at once. Chase down continues, but he's back in range of the Yam, right? He gets under his own outpost. And the Yam is running out now for Genghis, so he can't gap close anymore. And all of a sudden, the villager line are screwed again. Oh no, he might wipe DeMuslim's forces, but another dent in the economy. Look at it, 65 to 93 eco units. And this gold vein, yeah, you might get back on it, but the price was definitely high. Not only because your opponent harasses your eco, right? Not only because he shuts down your army and equals you out, it's because it covers him to go up for the Imperial Age, and he's no longer vulnerable. Look at the surplus, 1,000 of food and 1,000 of gold. Right? And DeMuslim is somewhat happy. He's like, great, man. Honestly, I wasn't gaining interest on these resources. I can finally spend them again. And even some archers now. The reason he does this, by the way, is because he wants to instantly keep pressure on, snipe out the step readouts units. And the importance of this is that it means that there will no longer be Lancers. And if there are no longer Lancers, it means that DeMuslim can actually beat you with just veteran archers. Soon to be elite archers at this rate, actually. And yeah, you can see it. It's just man-arms and archers. Because he understands that even if his opponent is getting some resource, he sniped half of the gold line. And also, it's only 1 gold vein left, right? And because DeMuslim is stripping away these central mines, it means that he can actually force a kind of cannon foddery situation in the mid-game off of units that mainly cost food. And then later on, if his opponent is somehow still alive, DeMuslim can simply just bounce back with a quality army made up of lancers, man-at-arms, anything that costs gold, basically. He could even think about hand cannoneers later on, because his gold will be much more healthy than his opponent's. And Genghis is not even managing his fishing anymore. They could be fishing right now, but they can't reach it. Look, he's trying. The outpost has range, though. That'll snipe you down so quickly. Damn big problem for him. Meanwhile, these outposts, this network is a problem. When you're resorting to horsemen at this stage, it's desperation. You can see he hasn't even upgraded them. They're still feudal age. I really do hope that he's upgrading. Thank God. That would have been actually painful to watch if he just had normie horsemen that entire time. Keep in mind, by the way, this takes longer for Mongols to transition for, because you get access to early horsemen, which means you have to tech them up from that point. It's the same as the concept of like an English player switching over to man-arms late game, right? They actually have to upgrade them all the way from Vanguard man-arms. And look at the move in by DeMuslim! And all these pings that are going off due to the outposts attacking you everywhere. Genghis hasn't even noticed. So many villages dead. Look at the count. And I think he's realized it now. And it's too late. He loses all of the villages and he calls the GG. What a disaster of a way to end this game. Oh my God, the power of the alert system. Folks, this is another reason why outpost networks are amazing. Because he keeps striking away at that step readout over to the side. Because he's picking away at villages and he's hitting onto the waterfront. There's so many alerts going off for Genghis. He's managing so many things already. He's relying on that alert system to at least show him what the problem is. But because he's being pinged everywhere on the minimap, he doesn't notice that DeMuslim sneaks in an army right under his primary TC and snipes out most of his food economy. And that is enough to shut out the game. Folks, this is the power of just striking multiple locations at once, right? Even the best players in the game, in the world, cannot easily respond to all that, right? Depending on how they're cycling, depending on where they're watching, and especially if you strike somewhere where they haven't looked in ages, right? Like, you've had no reason to look back at your base for a very long time as a Khan, right? You've set up an infrastructure there of the pastures. You've got the sheep constantly coming in. You've got a maintainable amount of villagers working on it. You're not really ever looking back at your base. Occasionally to stack up more villagers to be produced, but that's literally it, right? And DeMuslim takes full advantage of that, knowing that his opponent is less likely to look there at that point. And the moment he starts clubbing and not getting a response, he's like, okay, this is good. This is just done. Commits fully, snipes out, what, 20 more workers, and ensures that there is no way in hell that the Khan can rule supreme here. DeMuslim takes it. What a way to take it as well. Really well played. Really impressive showing out of him. Honestly, it's, top 20 for a reason. I'm proving it right here. Khan, still some impressive work, but definitely some things that need to be improved upon. I think so far, DeMuslim has been the most consistently impressive Mongol player for me on the new patch because he utilizes outposts more effectively than any other Mongol player I've watched thus far. And I think that genuinely is the way you have to play the Mongols. Mongols are genuinely a lot more like England now, in that if you do not play around outposts and it isn't a core part of your strategy, your chances of winning the game go down by like 40%. But honestly, if you want to see more DeMuslim, you enjoyed what you saw, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you follow across on the Twitch as well so you can catch these games live because honestly, we cover a lot of DeMuslim. He's one of those top players that grinds 8 games a day and doesn't private his profile, so you definitely get to see plenty of him and plenty of others, so make sure you check all that out. There'll be videos on the side up on this when it appears on the YouTube side of things. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you follow all that crap down there. Well, I guess it's not crap. It's kind of important to me, and I appreciate you for it. Hopefully I'll see you soon.